Portraits are amazing, intimate, and emotional paintings. They can be so wonderful. But sometimes if you miss just a couple of little details, or you're not quite thinking three-dimensionally as you put it on this two-dimensional surface, it can take away a little bit of that wonderful magic that you're looking for. I have a patron in my online group who did a beautiful portrait. But the eyes to me just looked a little flat. So I want to talk about a couple very simple techniques that you can do to make it work better for you. Let's do a comparison. Here are two portraits, quite good, but notice the eyes of the one on the left compared to those on the right. The ones on the left are somewhat flat and a little too big for the head. The one on the right are beautiful and realistic. There's depth to them. Here's another couple portraits. Here the one on the left is very good, but the one on the right has more three-dimensionality to it. It works better. And sometimes there's only a couple small tricks to make the difference. The eye is a sphere, as we know, and it sits inside the skull. And at the top of the eye is the brow bone, and the bottom of the eye is held by the skull. So the skull fits around the eyeball, and the eyeball fits inside it. Now what happens with the skin is that the skin will wrap over and around the eyeball on top of the bone. So the underlid wraps around the eyeball, and then the overlid wraps over the other skin and the eyeball. So it depends on where the nose is. So if the nose is over here, we'll say this is the nose. And that's what I'm going to draw. And if I notice carefully, there's an overlap. If I move this, you can see that the skin is not fitting directly on top of the eyeball. There's some space in between. I mean, it does sit right on it, but because the skin, in actuality, has thickness, we're going to feel that three-dimensional thickness. The skin is not right smack up against the eyeball. There is a thickness there, and that's going to help us feel more three-dimensional. This is about the eye. If we think of the structure of the eye, there's an eyeball. This is straight on, and this will be profile. Okay, that's basically the eyeball. Now, as we look straight on, if this is the nose side of it, the skin overlaps this eyeball. Overlaps the eyeball. So it grows up here, and it kind of often goes about 1/3 up, and this is basically Caucasian eyes. It goes up quickly about 1/3 of the way across the eyeball, and then it falls down quickly. I mean, more slowly the other way. So it kind of comes up and down. And then coming from the outside of the head, it's a little different. It's a little more of a curve. Slow around, and then back up to meet that other lid. What this skin has to do, if this is the eyeball itself, is you have to have space for that skin to wrap around this eyeball. It doesn't come right flat against it. There's space here around this. Stay. So there's going to be a bit of shading as we work with the eyeball. It's just a sphere inside this overlapping skin. If you look at this side too, here's the eyeball coming out. I'll move that, it's distracting. And from the outer corner of the eye, now again, it's come from the inner corner of the eye, that skin is coming up and wrapping around that eyeball. So you're going to actually feel space between the eyelid and the eyeball. I'm going to exaggerate it. Going back, that skin folds there, and then coming down from where the eyebrow is, it's going to fold back. This is exaggerated, but that's kind of the feeling you're going to get from it. Get that feeling of wrapping around the eyeball, and then there's going to be a cast shadow. If the light's coming from above, it's going to cast a shadow under the eyelid onto the eyeball. That's going to help set the eyeball back into the skin and give you a better sense of three-dimensionality. As it comes down this way, it also wraps around. See that little extra? And this is that little bit of skin. There's a little ridge here where the eyelashes come in. There's also a bit of a ridge here on this one. Kind of lost it in that one. Grab a quick little eraser, define that a little better. Get that ridge coming. Now you might not have a line here, but you need to be thinking about that ridge. There's a thickness to the skin. This shadow is going to be softer. It's not, this is a cast shadow, and this is an object shadow, just for the fact that it's wrapping around the eyeball. So you're thinking three-dimensionally. If there's any skin, if it's an older person, then that shadow, you know, or the shadows under our eye, that's going to go and follow the shape of the eyeball that's laying underneath. I am again going to draw a line for that little ridge, even though you don't usually see it. Okay. You want to know it's there and suggest it's there, but you don't want to make it too obvious. This overlapping skin would be here, and then this skin is what goes up to the eyebrow. Paper's too high. Here and here. And this would be the eyebrow, but we're not talking about that right now. But you want to have that space there, and you want to feel this three-dimensionality, side to and straight on. Now the iris is usually, the pupil is right in the middle of the eye, but usually more of the upper lid covers the eyeball than the lower lid. So often the pupil sits up higher. It sits in the middle of the eyeball. And this is from the side, so this is going to be different. We're going to look at it almost side two. It's not going to be a circle. It's going to be more of an oval, that opening. Notice I'm sitting it back. I do not have the pupil out here because that's not where it sits in the eye. The pupil sits down inside because there's a cornea covering the eyeball. That still counts. We have to think about that. It's so cool. Now I'm in an awkward spot here, but the iris, it'll touch the bottom lid, and about a third of it will be covered by the upper lid. And we can look at a picture and it will look different, but if our understanding is there, it's going to help us tremendously. Again, it sits back in. Sorry about the curve. I would turn the paper here, but doing a video, I can't really turn the paper. want my pupil a little larger. And notice I'm leaving kind of a spot here because there's going to be a highlight. The light's going to come down and create a highlight there. So don't just randomly shadow. Be thinking about, why is there a shadow here? Oh yes, that's a cast. This is that little bit of skin that has the tear duct in there. Thinking of that. Do some close-ups of eyes and study just the eye and try to get the feeling of that three-dimensionality in it. It's too high up. There's so much to be thinking about here. Think of the fluidity. How far in does the iris fit? How far in does the pupil fit? Remember, there's a clear, especially side 2, you're going to get a clear feeling where the cornea is sitting on top of the eye. When you're done with drawing it, you can add a highlight. If you're working with color, you can bring that out with color, or if you're working with charcoal, you can highlight it out. Now these aren't perfect. I did this very quickly, but just try to be thinking about the three-dimensionality of the eyeball. That's what I want to be thinking of. Nose is good. Where is your light coming from and how is it casting a shadow? If this is the bridge of the nose, you are always going to have a shadow, a soft shadow that blends into the bridge of the nose. Again, here's the eyebrow. There's going to be a little shadow under here where that crease is happening, so the eyebrow is here, and there's going to be a little bit of a cast shadow because the light's coming down this way, so there's going to be a bit of a cast shadow there. Again, this is exaggerated, that fold is exaggerated. There's also going to be a cast shadow over on the side of the eyebrow, over on the side of the lid, under the lid. Tell you what, this is not my best eye ever. I'm trying to be too careful. Probably be better if I just demoed it without trying to talk at the same time. Okay. And then there's going to be another, because this curves back, you're going to start running into more shadow off this side of the face. Shadow here from the nose, little cast shadow onto there, good cast shadow under here. You've got the tear duct area, and oftentimes professionals will put a pretty strong salmon or orange in the tear duct area. But you also want to consider the white of the eye. Now the white of the eye is not white. If you take a photograph of someone, a color photograph, and then you turn it to black and white, you will see that the tonal value of the white of the eye is almost the same as the lighter areas of the skin. Don't let it get too white. It's going to pop it out. It's not going to look natural. Study this in some of the master paintings. God, this is not good. I've got to do this again. I'm not happy with this. Ah! Nope, sorry. Not the best eyeball I've ever done, but we can get the feeling of how the thickness of the skin wraps around the eyeball, how the clear fluid in the eyeball is held in, and from the side, that refracts the light. Also, that the eyeball itself is a sphere, and when you shade it, it's going to follow the rules of shading a sphere. Do these multi-layers. Think about the highlights at the end, the depth, and the three-dimensionality of the eye. I hope this helps a bit. Focused on the eye? Let me know if you have any questions.